Madeleine McCann. You're on vacation with the entire family in Portugal, and the only thing on your mind is to make the most out of the break. So you go out with your friends for a friendly chit-chat over dinner, leaving your kids in the resort apartment. Madeleine McCann, at 3 years old, is the oldest, but you think she's old enough to hold the fort down and keep an eye on her younger siblings while you're out for a quick dinner dash. After all, the restaurant was just 55 meters away, which made the dinner look like a trip to the neighbor's house. Plus, the parents were like annoying kids who always ask, "Are we there yet?" during a road trip, because they periodically went back to the apartment to check up on the kids. But during one of the checkups, Madeleine wasn't in bed. This began a huge search that captured attention all around the world. The police in Portugal, along with detectives from other countries, including the UK, worked hard to find her. But the case got complicated enough that the police and the media blamed the McCanns for being as irresponsible as the parents from Home Alone. But they had nothing to pin Madeleine's disappearance on them. This led to a bad game of Where's Waldo, forcing authorities and investigators to search the entire continent. The theory was that she could have been a victim of a large kidnapping network, or even a sexual offender. For many years, there were no leads or security footage available. The biggest break in the case happened in 2020 when the German police identified a German suspect already imprisoned for a previous sexual offense. Technology betrayed this man when the police used his cell phone's geolocation pinpoint that he was around 5 minutes away from where Madeleine was last seen. It was almost as if his cell phone volunteered to testify. While there's no conclusion to the case yet, the German police believes he may have assaulted and killed the girl before dumping her body in the nearby dam. The Beaumont children. It's the middle of an Australian summer in 1966, and 3 siblings named Jane, Arna, and Grant thought they needed to cool the heat off. The Beaumont siblings went to the beach at Glenelg near Adelaide, South Australia, but the siblings vanished without a trace, instead of returning home with sandy towels and questionable tan lines. The disappearance led to one of Australia's investigations. On the day of their disappearance, witnesses saw the kids playing and being friendly with a tall, blonde man. This suggested they might have known him, or that he had a unique gift of making kids forget all about stranger danger. Maybe he promised them ice cream or a class in sandcastle making. To make matters worse, the kids were seen buying snacks with a £1 note, even though their mother had only given them a few coins, suggesting someone was handing out free cash to kids to gain their trust. Despite extensive searches and numerous tips from the public, no trace of the children was found. Over the years, theories and suspects popped up like seagulls at a picnic, ranging from a local businessman to a convicted child killer named Spencer von Einem. However, not even Sherlock Holmes would know where to start because the police couldn't find any evidence. Then came another theory, which claims the kids got a bit too interested in the idea of being future engineers and got too close to the heavy machinery during the construction of the Adelaide Oval and got buried under concrete. This probably explains why there were no clues. Decades have passed and there are 0 leads, but the case did affect Australian society, leading to more protective rules. Suddenly, be home by dark turned from a suggestion to a strict rule. Kyron Horman. Imagine being a young 7-year-old boy excited to attend school to present your science fair project on tree frogs. Your stepmother, Terry Horman, takes you to school to ensure your frogs don't skip out. However, instead of coming out of the fair as the winner of the blue ribbon, you don't even come home. That's the story of the 2010 disappearance of Kyron Horman, a boy from Portland, Oregon. Kyron's disappearance alarmed the rest of his family, prompting them to contact the school. Surprisingly, he had been marked absent the entire day. Security cameras also didn't show him entering and leaving school that day. That was when Terry became the evil Disney stepmother in this story, as she turned into the top suspect. She claimed she saw Kyron entering his classroom, despite school records showing otherwise. Regardless of what Terry claims, the entire city mounted a huge search for the boy, searching the area like an Easter egg hunt, but they found no clues about his possible whereabouts, turning the investigation toward Terry again. Terry denied any involvement, but there were clues that pointed to the possibility that she hired someone to harm her husband, Kyron's dad, which could mean she also intended to harm Kyron. This made the entire family reunion situation awkward enough for Kyron's dad to divorce her. Of course, Terry's behavior during the investigation and her failed lie detector tests didn't win her any fans. This included Desiree Young, Kyron's mom, who decided to sue her for kidnapping. But Desiree later dropped the lawsuit, likely because she wanted the police to solve the case instead of turning it into a courtroom drama. Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible. Being 16 was anything but sweet for Ashley Freeman when she celebrated her birthday. In December 1999, Ashley and her friend Lauria Bible had a slumber party at the Freeman home to celebrate. But instead of pillow fights and talks about boys, the party literally burned the house down. The sleepover turned into a crime scene. After the fire was put out, authorities discovered the bodies of Ashley's parents, Danny and Kathy Freeman, inside the ruins. Both had been shot before the fire. Initially, it was unclear whether the girls were also victims of the fire, but bodies don't easily disappear like ghosts, even if they were turned to ash. This led to an investigation that turned every stone, only for the case to turn cold. They couldn't find clues about the girls, or whether or not they snuck out in the dead of the night for some high school party. They also failed to find clues related to who Ashley's parents or where the two teenagers were. Everyone was stuck playing detective in a real-life version of Clue. It took nearly 20 years for them to find anything related to the disappearance of the girls. Witnesses claimed that a man named Ronnie Busick and his two other companions bragged about assaulting and killing the two girls. Busick was finally arrested. Unfortunately, the two other guys he was with were already 6 feet under, unable to pay for their crimes even if someone dug them out. Busick pleaded guilty to the incident. The motive for killing the Freeman family was a drug dispute he thought could be solved with death and destruction. Despite the progress in the case, the bodies of the two girls were never found, and though Busick was sentenced to 10 years in prison, he got out in 38 months for good behavior, something he should have done before he and his friends kidnapped and killed Ashley and Lauria. Jacob Wetterling. Let's say you're Jacob Wetterling's brother, as you and another friend are cycling home from a nearby convenience store on October 22, 1989. Just as you're close to home, a masked gunman appears and asks your age. He leaves you and your friend alone, but runs away with the 11-year-old Jacob. The masked man disappeared with Jacob, launching an investigation that rallied the community like a true crime version of a town hall meeting. They all failed to find clues that would have immediately allowed them to find Jacob. Despite the initial failure, Patty and Jerry Wetterling, Jacob's parents, became superheroes for children everywhere by becoming advocates for child safety. They helped establish new laws that required to set up child sex offender registries, believing whoever abducted Jacob was a previously convicted child sex offender. Meanwhile, justice may have been late to the party, but it was the best dish served, because 27 years later, the family finally got answers. It was an internet blogger who connected the dots the police couldn't connect. He found out that there had been similar incidents involving an armed man and several boys living close to where Wetterling disappeared. The clues pointed to Danny Heinrich, a person who had been a suspect early on but had never been charged. But because of the statute of limitations, which is a fancy way of saying the police took their sweet time to arrest him, he couldn't be charged with the Wetterling disappearance. Fortunately for the police, they found child porn in his home, leading to his arrest. And as part of a plea deal, he confessed to the kidnapping and murder of Jacob. Heinrich led investigators to Jacob's remains, finally giving the Wetterling family some answers, though they were tragically not the ones they had hoped for. But Heinrich's confession closed the chapter on a 30-year investigation that seemed like a long and dark movie the family could not wait to end. Sarah Payne. The story of Sarah Payne's disappearance proves that even the shortest walks can have the longest consequences. In July 2000, she and her siblings were playing near her grandparents' house in West Sussex, England, when she decided to take a break and head home alone. Her grandparents' home was just a few minutes away, but that was all the time a kidnapper needed to snatch her. Sarah's disappearance alerted the police, sparking one of the biggest police investigations at the time. It involved hundreds of police officers and volunteers on a huge search that could put to shame any GPS tracker. When they found Sarah, it was in the most tragic state. Her body was found 15 miles from where she had last been seen, just over 2 weeks after her disappearance. The police acted swiftly and zeroed in on all known sex offenders in the vicinity, honing their investigation on Roy Whiting with the precision of a laser. Whiting, a local previously convicted for abducting and assaulting a child, apparently missed the memo on avoiding repeat offenses. Clearly, he didn't read the memo on how to clean up after a murder because fibers from Sarah's clothing were discovered in his van. The evidence against him was so clear that even a blind man would know that Whiting was the man behind Sarah's disappearance and death. He was arrested, tried, and convicted, receiving a life sentence. Morgan Nick. Let's say you're Morgan Nick, a 6-year-old girl from Arkansas. On June 9, 1995, you and your friends went to a Little League baseball game, but got bored. That's when you decide to go firefly catching. But instead of hunting fireflies, you become the hunted in a stalking game, leading to your disappearance. The other kids came back, but Morgan didn't. She just vanished, sparking a big search that turned up no clues, except for some red pickup that was seen lurking around the ballpark, probably thinking it was flying under the radar. But no sign of Morgan ever turned up, and her disappearance is still a total mystery. Years after the disappearance, there were several tips and clues that helped the investigation, including unknown people telling them a location of where she could have been buried, or they saw a mysterious man taking her to a house in Oklahoma. The police dug around several homes and even relied on the sniffing powers of police dogs, but her body was never found. Almost 2 decades after Morgan's disappearance, they finally got a big break that led them to a potential suspect named Billy Jack Lynx, who owned a red pickup truck. Fibers closely matching Morgan's clothes were found in his truck, suggesting that she may have taken the last ride of her life inside this vehicle. However, Lynx died in prison in 2000 while serving a different sexual offense conviction, taking the truth of Morgan's disappearance to the grave. Ben Needham. In 1991, little Ben Needham, just a toddler of 21 months, was living the simple farm life on the Greek island of Kos with his family. They were fixing up an old farmhouse surrounded by the usual countryside suspects, such as pigs and chickens. Ben was exploring and playing, unaware of any danger in his little world. Then suddenly he disappeared, leaving no witnesses behind except for the animals that sadly couldn't speak English. His family frantically searched every corner of the farm and called the police, sparking a massive hunt through haystacks and dirt, yet Ben remained missing. There were rumors he might have gotten kidnapped, or that he met a tragic accident while he was playing the role of a little farm boy in this countryside adventure. It wasn't until 25 years later that a chilling theory emerged. On that fateful day, the farm was bustling with heavy machinery, digging and moving earth. In the middle of all the tractors and diggers, little Ben might have been playing close, too young to understand common safety precautions when you're near heavy machinery. The horrifying possibility was that one of the large diggers, its operator, unaware of the tiny child in its path, might have scooped Ben up with the soil, burying his secrets beneath the ground. Investigators dug through over 800 tons of earth on that very farm, searching for any signs of Ben. Although his body remained undiscovered, a small piece of a sandal from 1991 and traces of blood were found, supporting the grim theory that Ben was killed and buried in the worst 2-for-1 bargain anyone could ever experience. Lisa Irwin. When you're taking care of a 10-month-old baby, it might be a good idea to lay off the booze for a while. That was the lesson Deborah Bradley, the mother of Lisa Irwin, learned the hard way on October 4th, 2011, when her daughter went missing. According to Lisa's parents, they tucked her into bed early, and that was the last time they saw her. Deborah, meanwhile, met up with Jack Daniels and Johnny Walker, eventually blacking out from all the alcohol she drank that night. She claims she couldn't remember anything after that. Meanwhile, Jeremy Irwin, Lisa's father, returned from work to find the front door unlocked, house lights on, and a window messed with, as if someone had a field day messing with their home security measures, or lack thereof. He also found that Lisa's crib was empty and some cell phones were missing, leading the family to think maybe a kidnapper wanted to prevent calls to the police. Upon hearing of the incident, the police and the FBI sprang into action, searching wood fields and knocking on every door. Despite investigative efforts worthy of a CSI episode, they found no solid clues or signs of Lisa. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station that night showed an unidentified person walking along the road, leading to speculation about a possible abductor, but this person was never identified. Meanwhile, some theories and suspicions even pointed the case toward Deborah because she had a bit too much to drink that night. But this was a simple case of a tired mother who just wanted to take the edge off. She was never charged because there wasn't any evidence against her. Over the years, there were tips the police followed up on, including a possible sighting of Lisa in Greece. But it was a simple case of a child who could win a Lisa look-alike contest. There were also claims that one of the family's stolen debit cards was used on a website that provides fake birth certificates, giving them hope that the kidnapper wanted to raise Lisa as their own. To this day, the case remains unsolved, and Lisa might be living her best teenage years, not knowing she used to be all over the news years ago. JonBenet Ramsey. Imagine being 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey in Colorado in the middle of 1996. You have just won a beauty contest for kids and have your whole life ahead of you, possibly a future stint as Miss USA. It's also Christmas Day, which means you're supposed to be happy opening presents. Unfortunately for the Ramsey family, they got the worst present of all when they woke up and found no signs of their daughter, except for a ransom note. This note, interestingly, demanded $118,000 instead of rounding it up or asking for more. What was weirder was that this was the same amount JonBenet's dad, John Ramsey, recently family received as a bonus, so it was obvious someone knew about the family's financial situation down to the last cent. Despite the note telling them not to contact the police, the Ramseys immediately called them. The police searched the property, only to find no signs of the child beauty queen. However, later that afternoon, John Ramsey and a family friend did another sweep of the house. They soon discovered JonBenet's body in the basement. She had been strangled and killed with a blow to the head. Suspicions naturally turned towards the Ramsey family because they were seemingly better at finding dead bodies than the police. The strange details of the ransom note, the lack of forced entry, and the handling of JonBenet's body by her father also raised some eyebrows, practically putting a target on the Ramsey family's back. However, despite the intense scrutiny, no one in the family was ever charged. They maintained their innocence and suggested an intruder was responsible. As years passed, various theories floated around involving potential suspects outside the family, including local sex offenders. DNA evidence found on JonBenet's clothing seemed to support the intruder theory, showing DNA from an unknown male, yet no matches have been found.